Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed.
Hear me?
Greetings and salutations. You're listening to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is Christian Taylor, and I personally want to thank you for clicking on today's episode. Just want to start by saying that I hope you, fellow listener or listeners, are doing extremely well. Hope life is treating you very well. Things are going pretty good on my end. This past week, last 2 weeks, I'll add, have been extremely tiring. Working 2 jobs, trying to get all my bills paid off. It's just been very busy recently. But today, I don't have to be at work till 4 o'clock. Had some free time on my hands, so I kind of figured, hey, why not do another podcast episode? I know that I'm not doing these nowhere near as frequently as I used to, just because of how busy my schedule is. But I try to do one every couple of weeks whenever I can, and it just depends on if I'm in the mood or not. But today, I'm definitely in the mood, and we're going to be doing something a little different today with this recording. I'm actually going to be cramming 2 movies together into one episode, just to wrap something up, because Scream 7 is on the horizon. It's going to be coming out in about 20 days. It's set to release on February 27th of this year, so we got exactly 20 days until it hits theaters. And today it dawned on me that there are 2 Scream films left that I have not covered yet on my show, so I figured why not use this recording to wrap up, those films. Because I've already covered Scream 1 in the past, back during my college days at Eastern University. I did that movie. I covered that film with a couple of buddies of mine. You can go check that one out. I've also covered Scream 4. And I covered Screams 5 and 6 while I was also at Eastern University. So that just leaves Screams 2 and 3. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. And this is going to be interesting because I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be a hot take. But my least favorite Scream films are Screams 2 and 3. I really do feel like that these 2 films are the weakest ones out of the franchise right now. I would pick Screams 5 and 6 over them any day of the week. I know that Screams 5 and 6 get a lot of hate in the fan base for some reason. I don't know why. There's Scream Facebook pages that I follow on Facebook, and all the time, people just hate these films nonstop for no reason. I mean, it's just like, Screams 5 and 6 brought the franchise back to life as far as I'm concerned. They're great films. But don't let me rant, that's just my opinion, but we're going to be discussing Screams 2 and 3 today, so let's get to it. So, just to give you a little of a history lesson for you about me, I was introduced to the Scream films back in, when I was a teenager. I think my mom started showing me these when I was around 12 years old, I believe, and 12 or 13 maybe. My mom was the one who introduced me to the Scream films, and we had a lot of fun watching them together. Actually, no, I was 14. Anyway, I was like 14 years old, and we watched them all together. We watched 1 through 4, and I had a lot of fun watching them. The original, obviously, was one of my favorites, and at the time, I thought 2 and 3 were decent. I loved number 4. 4 was incredible. And I had a lot of fun covering that on the show. I highly recommend you guys go check that episode out. It was really fun to do. But 2 and 3 were okay for me, but I didn't think they were that great, if I'm being honest. So, okay, the first thing we'll do, let's take a look at Scream 2. So, it came out literally the following year after the first Scream came out in 96. So in 97, Scream 2 was released. And this one was also directed by Wes Craven, who also directed Nightmare on Elm Street, amongst other projects. Scream 2 was released on December 12th of 1997. fun fact, my parents went on a date to go see the second one back in 97. That was a year before my parents got married. Anyway, the film sees the return of Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Timothy Oliphant is in this film, and I actually know him because I grew up watching the Die Hard films, and he was the villain, and he played the villain in Die Hard 4. Jada Pickett Smith is in this film at the very beginning. Jamie Kennedy comes back as Randy. Let's see here. Laurie Metcalf is in this film. She plays Billy Loomis's mother. And Liev Schreiber makes an appearance in this as the character of Cotton, who is believed to have been the man who murdered Sydney's mother. But as we learn in Scream 2, well, actually, no, we learn at the end of Scream 1 that he was not the killer, but it was Billy and Stu who killed Sydney's mother. We see Cotton, he has like one appearance in the first Scream film on a TV screen in an orange jumpsuit because he's being escorted into jail because he was believed to be the killer. And then he has some screen time in Scream 2. He makes appearances in Scream 3. He shows up at the very beginning, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But so the plot for Scream 2 basically is that, Sydney has now graduated high school, and her and Randy were like the two survivors of the friend group. Everybody else met their demise, and they head off to college to try to forget what happened in their town and kind of just move on with their lives or whatever. But then Sydney's got some new friends. She has a new boyfriend now, trying to forget what happened, and but then she starts getting Ghostface calls again, and the whole mayhem starts all over again. And I gotta say though, I mean, this one was a pretty good follow-up to the first film. There's a lot of mystery going around, and I like how the film kind of like tries to make you think that maybe like one of our core four, I mean, Sydney, Randy, Dewey, and Gail, sorry. I don't know what is going on with my brain today, guys. I've had to pause this like 3 times because I keep forgetting the names of characters and I have to keep Googling them. It's driving me crazy. Gail. Ugh, man, my brain. Guys, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. These last few weeks, my brain is just not working. I'm forgetting names left and right. It's driving me crazy. Anyway, those are the core 4, for Scream 2. And I like how this film is trying to make you think, like, there's times, the film tries to make you think that Randy might be the killer. There's, like, a scene where Randy thinks that, Dewey could potentially be the killer. I think there was even a point they thought that Gail may even be the killer, But anyway, it's revealed, at the end of Scream 2 that the killers was Timothy's character and Billy Loomis's mother, who I believe made like one appearance in this near the beginning of the film as a news reporter. But Sydney didn't see her, but when she walks out on stage at the end of Scream 2, Sydney recognizes her, very quickly. I think it's even said that she may have had some work done to change her appearance or whatever. But I thought it was kind of cool with this film how they had her trying to, get revenge for what happened to her son, even though it's like, lady, your son was a complete, psychopath who needed some serious help. But anyway, I thought that was a really good reveal. I mean, I think Scream 2 did a good, somewhat job of, keeping the killer identities, hidden, I mean, how could we have guessed it was Billy's mom? It's like she only had one appearance, but anyway, I thought the reveal in this one was okay. And I I think the main problem that I have, with this movie is that this film didn't really give the new characters a whole lot of screen time, if I'm being honest. Like, watching this film, I mean, in Scream 1, I mean, I was really sad when Rose McGowan's character was killed. I really liked her. She was Sydney's best friend, and I was sad, when Stu was revealed to be the killer, because I really liked Stu. I thought he was a funny guy, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, Billy. There was a good portion of the first film where I was thinking they're trying to pull a twist on us, where it's like, no, Billy's too obvious, but then he is the killer. But you know, But yeah, when characters met their end in the first film out of the main friend group, I was genuinely sad. I really cared for them. But in Scream 2, gotta be honest, when the new characters are killed, I didn't really feel that much because again, they weren't given a whole lot of screen time for me to really care that much. Sarah Michelle Gellar is in this movie for a little bit. 1997 was a big year for her. I mean, like in '97, the first season of Buffy came out. I Know What You Did Last Summer came out, and then Scream 2. I mean, she had two films and a TV show all within a year. I mean, in the late '90s, I mean, Sarah was like on top of the world. But anyway, due to scheduling conflicts, apparently she was supposed to be in Scream 2 a lot more, but due to scheduling conflicts, they had to cut down her screen time. I mean, she has a few appearances here and there, but I believe she dies like halfway through the movie, and when she was killed, I mean, I didn't really feel that much, to be honest with you. Like Sydney's new friend in this one, when she dies near the end of the film, I didn't really care that much for her either, because it's just like, again, she barely got any screen time. And, Sydney's new boyfriend in this, I mean, I don't know, I just didn't see any chemistry between the two of them. I thought he was kind of a dork and kind of stupid, if I'm being honest, I mean, when he dies at the end of the film, I did like how, Timothy's character tries to play tricks on Sydney and making her think that her boyfriend was, one of the killers, but he's not. But Timothy shoots him anyway, and kills him. But again, I didn't really feel much. I did feel a little bad for him at the end. He was a genuine good guy, and unfortunately, Sydney suspected him for a good portion of the film, and it's like, can you really blame her after what happened last time, But yeah, that was really. And another thing about this film that, again, the main focus is the cast. It's that I think it was a big mistake that they killed off Randy in this film. I thought that was a very bad idea. I mean, I wish Wes hadn't have done that. I remember watching this film, and I was texting my friend Angel, who I've mentioned before. I went to high school with her, and she's the one who got me to watch the Smallville show, which I have also covered on the show. Anyway, she is, too, a Scream fan like me, and I remember I was texting her, I'm like, hey, I'm watching the Scream films, and she's like, let me know when you get to the second one, and I was telling her, okay, I'm watching it, and then when Randy's death scene showed up, I remember texting her, I'm like, Randy, no, and she sent me back a bunch of laughing emojis. I was like, I told her, I am so angry right now, I was so mad when they killed him, it's just like, what, it's only the second movie, I just thought that was a huge waste. I mean, we have 6 movies now, I think they killed him way too early. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I think he should have survived all the way to I say he should have at least made it to the 3rd movie. Maybe even the 4th, I mean, I feel like there was so much more they could have did with him, But, yeah, that made me angry. So again, the new characters, were Randy's death. He was the only death in the movie that I was genuinely sad about, but everybody else didn't really care that much. And like I said, the killers in Scream 2 were all right. I mean, Timothy's character, I mean, I think there were a few points in the film where it was kind of obvious that it's him. I mean, who else is it going to be? I mean, I'm watching this, I'm like, yeah, they're not going to have one of the core four be the killer, you know? So, I mean, I felt like he was a little obvious. Billy's mom being the killer, I thought was kind of cool. It kind of felt like they were throwing, it kind of felt like they took inspiration from Friday the 13th, with Jason's mother being the killer in the first, in the first Scream movie, the Drew Barrymore's character, when she's getting the phone, horror film question, routine, she gets asked, who is the original killer in the Friday the 13th film, and she says Jason Voorhees, and he's like, nope, sorry, you're wrong. Jason's mother was the original killer, and Jason didn't show up until the sequels. So I kind of feel like in Scream 2, they're kind of like paying homage to Friday the 13th and having Billy's mom be the killer in this one, kind of like an homage to the original Friday the 13th film. And fun fact, my mom does not believe me that Jason Voorhees' mother was the original killer. She's like, what? No, Jason was in all of them. And I was like, no, Mom, he didn't show up until part 2. And she refuses to believe me. I own the entire franchise on Blu-rays. I told her at some point, we're going to sit down and watch this and settle this debate once and for all, because she will not believe me. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, Sydney wins the day yet again, but it's sad, literally her entire friend group is killed again, except for Gail and Dewey. And, in this movie, Gail didn't really grow that much. I mean, for the first half of this film, she's exactly the same way she was in the first film, just a snobby reporter who doesn't care about anybody but herself, and she doesn't give a crap about who gets killed as long as she gets a good story out of it. Like she was a very insufferable person, in my opinion, in the first two movies. Dewey even points out to her multiple times that, like, once in your life, can you at least care for someone besides yourself? And, their relationship didn't work out. It was a very short-lived one. And apparently, in the movie, we learned that Dewey was very angry with her with how she wrote him. Because you find out in this film that Gail has written a book about what happened, in the first Scream film, and it was a huge success, but Dewey was very angry with how she wrote him in her book adaptation of what happened. Anyway, so they're not really on good terms, and Dewey, shows up on campus to look out for Sydney. Like, one of my favorite scenes, in this movie was the minute, Sydney sees him walking toward her, and she leaves her friends, makes a beeline right for him, and gives him a hug. I mean, guys, I'm telling you, in the first four Scream films, one of my favorite things about them was the friendship between Dewey and Sydney. I mean, I love seeing them together. I don't think they got enough screen time together, if I'm being honest. Like, in Scream 4, my favorite scene in that whole film was that scene with Dewey and Sydney on the couch, talking, and reminiscing about everything they've been through together. Dewey's like this big brother figure to her, telling her that he will keep her safe no matter what. I loved the friendship between the two of them. Like, it was a very special one. I can understand why a lot of the fans were angry when Dewey was killed off in Scream 5. I think it was the right idea, but I wish we could have gotten at least one scene of Dewey and Sydney, talking in person and not over the phone, I mean, that's the last time she got to talk to him, was that phone call, I wish they could have gotten to see each other just one more time. It would have been nice in 5, excuse me, if we could have had just one scene with our trio together again just one more time. So I can understand why people were angry. Some fans were angry about it. Yeah, the movie ends. Dewey and Gail get back together again. And Sydney walks off. Alone, and it's not really a happy ending, if I'm being honest. I mean, this poor girl, she watched all her friends die again. like, poor Sydney. I mean, two times, within a year, like literally two different occasions within a year, she, all her friends and love interests get killed, and just what a sad life she's had. I mean, she finds out, in the first film that her mom was a really bad person who was cheating on her father left and right. Like her mom was not really a good person. I mean, that's kind of a hard truth to accept, but it is. And we learned in the third film she was even worse, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I would say Scream 2 wasn't really a happy ending. I mean, that last shot of Sydney walking out into the sunset all by herself, it was kind of not very happy. I mean, it was kind of a sad ending, gotta be honest. And then we cut to Scream 3, and things for Sydney get a lot sadder in this one. I will honestly say, I think that Scream 3, in my personal opinion, is the weakest one in the entire franchise. I didn't like the killer in this one, to be honest. I didn't like the story in this one. I thought it got way too silly. And there's a lot of things in the story that don't make any sense to me. And it's like the characters in this one were even worse than the new cast we got in the second film. I cared for them slightly. But the new characters that they introduced in this one, I didn't care about any of them. And I think this one has the weakest ghost face, in my opinion. And the stuff the stuff that happens in this, it makes my brain hurt, but we'll get to that. So now we cut to Scream 3, which came out in 2000, 3 years later after Scream 2. And I actually watched, here's a little bit of trivia for you. So the original story for Scream 3 was they were going to bring Stu back. I watched an interview with Matthew, who played Stu, and he was talking about how he had already been paid, to come back, for Scream 3. The original idea was going to be that there was going to be a new gang of friends at the high school, and Stu was going to be it was going to be a group of ghost faces led by Stu, and they'd be killing other high school students. It was something like that. But when Wes Craven and his writers were writing this story in 1999, the tragic Columbine High School shooting happened, and Wes felt like it wasn't appropriate for this story to come out, just a year after, that horrible incident, where high school students were shot and killed. That whole thing was just horrible. So the entire story was scrapped, and then they came up with this instead. And gotta be honest, I wish we could have gotten to see that story instead. This whole Hollywood plot they made for this one, I didn't like it very much. Finding out that Sydney's mother apparently was an actress or whatever, it's just like, I felt like things started to get a little silly at this point. So in this one, we see our core trio come back again, along with some new characters. So the movie opens up with the character of Cotton being killed off right at the beginning of the film, and along with his girlfriend or whatever. And this Ghostface, so this is the only film where there's a singular Ghostface character. Every other film, it was always either a trio or two people. Anyway, so this is the first film where it was just one. And a new device gets introduced in this one. So Ghostface has his voice changer. We all know that gives him that deep voice that he uses when he calls his victims on the phone. And this is the only time we see this thing ever get used, was this film. He has a device that makes him sound like other people, which I think is really cool, so he can fool the characters more. And we see this thing get used multiple times throughout the picture. And so the plot of this one is basically is that Ghostface is back again, and he kills Cotton and his girlfriend at the beginning of the film. And then we cut to Sydney living all by herself, completely cut off from the outside world, in like this gated house. She has a dog, and she's like now working as a I forget. She's like an emergency respondent. She's like she talks to people through her headset at her computer. I don't know if she's like a counselor or something. It's something like that, but we get this sad scene, you know, in the third film where her father shows up to visit her, you know, and he's trying to tell her, you know, like, why don't you go back to the outside world? And she's like, you know, 2 different times I've watched all my friends die, and I'm sure Ghostface will come back again, so I'm gonna live, you know, the rest of my life out here. I can't be killed if I can't be found. You know, like she's completely cut herself off. The only person who knows where she lives, the only ones is her father and Dewey. No one else knows, not even Gail, you know. I mean, it's really sad. I mean, Sydney is really depressed for a good portion of this movie, you know, like, and it's like, it kind of, her mental state kind of gets brought into the focus, because, I mean, it's like, yeah, think about it. This poor girl has watched all of her friends die 2 different times, you know, I mean, like, that's horrible. And, you know, Dewey is working, you know, Dewey has a new job now. He's working security. He is now a bodyguard for this actress who's going to be playing Gail in the new Stab film. So, one of my favorite running jokes in the Scream franchise is that it gets introduced in Scream 2 where it's a movie within a movie. So in the Scream universe, the events that have happened, you know, in Screams 1 and 2, you know, were being adapted into a movie, and it's called Stab. And and the movies are based off the books that Gail wrote about her experiences in the first 2 films. And in Scream 3, they're getting ready to make, you know, Stab 3 or whatever. And Dewey is protecting the actress who's going to be playing Gail in Stab 3, Jennifer Jolie, played by actress Parker Posey is her name. And while we're talking about the other characters, another main character that gets introduced in this film is let's see here, a police officer, a detective named Mark Kincaid, played by Patrick Dempsey, who's very famous for being a main character in the show Grey's Anatomy, which I have never watched, nor do I plan to. Anyway, another actor in this is Scott Foley, who plays Roman Bridger, who's the director for Stab 3. Let's see, Jenny McCarthy makes an appearance in this as Sarah Darling. And another actress is in this film too. Heather Matarazzo is her name. And what's pretty cool is I was actually introduced to her again recently. She played a villain in Wednesday Season 2. So it's really cool getting to see her again, being in a scary project. But she was a great addition to the film. She plays Martha Meeks, who is Randy's sister, which I think is really cool. We get this amazing scene. Like one of my favorite scenes in Scream 3 was when she's like, guys, you gotta see this. Like she tells Sydney, Gail, and Dewey that she has a tape. She puts it in the VCR, and it's Randy. It's a videotape that he made of himself at college in the last film before he was killed. He made that tape just in case if he dies, because he wanted to tell, you know, Sydney the rules for because Randy, in the first 2 films, he is like the movie expert. You know, we see him in the first Scream working at the video rental store, and, you know, he knows all the genres, and his favorite is horror. I think it was cool in the first 2 films that he explains the rules, you know, for the first film, the sequel, then this videotape, he explains to the cast, the rules for when the third film shows up, where it's like he says, all rules are off the table. Anybody can die, including you, Sydney. You're the main character in all this, but the plot armor is now gone, and it's open season for all of you, and it was really cool that they still found a way for him to make an appearance in this, because he was a very important character, so that I'm glad they were able to have him at least make a cameo in this movie. But this is the only scene that features Martha, unfortunately. After this scene, we don't see her again for the rest of the film, but thankfully, Scream 5 brings her back, for one scene, so it's kind of cool, that they brought her back, and she's the mom of the twins, so I think it was cool that they kept the legacy going. But yeah, she was a great addition, to the movie. And the other characters in this film are basically all the cast of, actors who are going to be playing, in the Stab 3 movie. And Dewey, Gale, and Sydney are with them too, so it's them and the actors. And guys, gotta be honest, the characters in this film, I didn't care about any of the cast members. I mean, I per usual, they all die, throughout the movie, and I felt nothing when they all died. I think, I didn't really care. I mean, the girl that Dewey was looking after, gotta be honest, she was kind of a snobby little brat, I mean, she was really giving off energy that she was spoiled, rotten, never worked hard a day in her life. There's literally a scene where, she slaps Dewey, and Gale just comes over and punches her in the face, for don't treat my man like that, kind of thing, She was a very ungrateful person, so when she dies in this, I can't say I was really sad about it, one more actor, Lance Henkerson, makes an appearance in this as John Milton, a very snobby director. He will always be Bishop to me from Aliens. He's a great actor. He plays this snobby director, and we learn near the end of the film when he's being held, at knife point, that he basically raped Sydney's mother, back when she first came to Hollywood. He was one of those kind of directors where he's like, hey, sleep with me and I'll give you all these roles, just being a absolute dirtbag. Anyway, he gets killed near the end of the film, and it gets revealed, that the main killer in this is Roman, and the reveal, gotta be honest, didn't really like it that much. At the end of the film, most of all the actors have been killed now. Dewey, Gale, and Sydney are basically the last ones standing, as usual, and when this ghost face, Sydney's like, who are you? And then he pulls the mask off, and it's Roman, the guy who's barely had any screen time throughout this movie, who has kind of been mostly a comic relief for most of the picture, gets revealed to be the main killer in this. And for me, it's like, okay, who are you? And then it gets revealed that he was the one who instructed Billy and Stu on what to do, and it's like, guys, gotta be honest, I didn't like this whole thing where it's like, Roman's the one who started this whole thing. I thought that was really stupid, and I think it ruined a lot of things for the first film, because the first movie, why didn't Billy and Stu mention this? I mean, it's like, you would think they'd tell, oh, Sydney, by the way, you have a long-lost brother who taught us how to do all these evil things. But there's no mention of him at all. This really felt like a last-minute, pull for, a plot twist. And it's like, I just don't think it works very well. Because the first movie, I mean, Billy and Stu outright say they're doing this because they've watched too many horror films and they wanted to do one of those things for real, and they gave no mention that somebody, taught them on what to do. You would think they would have mentioned something to Sydney that, oh yeah, your brother Roman showed us how to do all this. So it's like, really? That just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I know I'm not alone on this. I feel like a lot of Scream fans felt the same way, where this reveal kind of fell flat. We barely saw this guy. I mean, it's like, oh, Sydney, I am your long-lost brother that you never knew about. It's like, okay, anything else. I mean, Sydney wasn't even that phased by it. You know, I mean, they have a fight at the end of the film, you know, and she, before the fight happens, you know, Roman's giving her the standard, this is all your fault, you know, like, this is, you're the reason my life is ruined. And it's, you know, Sydney just finally stands up for herself and tells him pretty much what all of us are thinking, where it's like, will you shut the heck up? I've heard this all already. Can you just take some darn responsibility and make things right for yourself instead of finding someone else to blame, you know, because she's been told this, you know, 2 times in a row now. Screams 1 and 2. The killers keep telling her, you know, it's your fault. This person's dead. It's your fault. My life is all screwed up. It's your mom's fault. Blah, blah, blah. You know, if we've heard this over and over, and she basically just, she has to crash out. You know, she's just like, I'm fed up. I'm done. It is not my fault. I'm sorry for what happened to you, but don't be blaming me for it. I'm not responsible for the decisions my late mother made, you know? What am I supposed to do about that, you know? So they have a fight, you know, they fight for a while, and, you know, she shoots him in the chest, but then he reveals he has a bulletproof vest on. And then Dewey runs in, you know, and he fights Ghostface, he fights Roman for a minute, and then Dewey manages to get the gun and keeps shooting him in the chest, and Sydney and Gale yell out, shoot him in the head, and he finally shoots him in the head. And this is really history making. This is the one time that, you know, that the main killer was killed by Dewey and not Sydney. I mean, in Screams 1 through 4, you know, Sydney killed, you know, the main Ghostface killer, you know, but in 3, Dewey does it, you know, which I think was really cool. And while we're talking about it, I think the best thing about this movie was the Dewey growth in this one. Because in the first 2 films, I mean, gotta be honest, Dewey was just kind of written to be an absolute goofball, you know? Like, I remember rewatching this movie in college, and I didn't catch that this film gave Dewey a lot of growth, but then the sequels just kind of reverted him back to how he was in the first 2 movies, you know, and it's just like, he was a goofball, very inconfident, you know, he didn't really do much to help, he got his butt handed to him over and over again, you know, he was just kind of a comic relief, and he had this running joke going where he refuses to die. I mean, the first 2 films, he gets stabbed multiple times and walks out unscathed, he has nerve damage, but anyway, you know, he was kind of like the running joke for the first 4 films that he's unkillable. You know, I'm pretty sure, like, him, Sydney, and Gale, like, all 3 of them had probably scars everywhere for the amount of times they have been stabbed, yet they lived, you know. Plot armor. But anyway, like I said, first 2 films, very inconfident, didn't really help much, kinda, but, you know, he was not very good in a fight. So it was kind of nice, you know, in this movie, he had a lot of growth. You know, he stood up to Gale and her shenanigans and told her outright multiple times that he's not helping her, you're on your own, I'm not going to let you use me again. And he got a new line of work, you know, he was doing really well for himself, you know, and he was protecting Sydney, you know, and he had a lot of growth in this one. He was very strong, very confident. He was finding all the clues, you know, finding out the mystery. I mean, he was doing very well in this one. And it was really cool to finally, he got the chance, you know, to be the hero finally. And he killed Roman. And I just wanted to high-five him in that moment, you know. So that was another thing about Scream 3 I will give a plus for, was the growth of Dewey. But unfortunately, in Scream 4, he was reverted, back to how he was in the first 2 films. You know, very incompetent, very dumb. You know, I'm just like, why? You know, kind of made this feel a little pointless. But anyway, besides the actors in the cast, the Detective Kincaid, gotta be honest, I didn't like him very much either throughout this movie. In Scream 5, apparently it was revealed that, that Sydney married Mark and she had kids with them. That was the idea. I mean, for Scream 5, everybody assumed, oh, they must be talking about Kincaid from Scream 3 because he flirts with Sydney multiple times throughout the movie. And, you know, they talk horror movies and stuff, and he's at the house with her, Gail, and Dewey at the end of the movie. And apparently Patrick Dempsey was supposed to be in Scream 4, but apparently he couldn't do it because of scheduling conflicts. So he's never mentioned again. He was never mentioned once in Scream 4, you know, but anyway. They were hinting at a romance in this film, and gotta be honest, I didn't like Kincaid in Scream 3 at all. I mean, am I the only one who thinks that he was a snobby douchebag throughout most of it? I mean, he treated Dewey like crap throughout the entire film. It's like he had to keep telling him, no, I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help. This guy was a jerk throughout most of the movie. You know, I mean, he was very stupid. And he was a very arrogant guy. And I didn't want him to be with Sydney. It's like, dude, you don't deserve her. You're a piece of crap. Like, I don't want you being with her. I was actually kind of annoyed that, you know, that he was married, you know, to Sydney. But then Scream 7, they retconned that. Thank goodness. Because, you know, Dewey's just like, you know, in Scream 5, when Dewey's on the phone with her, he's like, how's Mark? And she's like, I think I'll keep him. They don't say a last name, so thankfully they were kind of able to retcon that. And Sydney's married to a different guy who happens to be named Mark, and I'm actually very happy about that because I did not want this piece of crap Kincaid character to be with Sydney. I did not like him at all throughout most of the film. Like I said, I just found him to be a very snobby, stuck-up person, and it's like, there's literally a scene in this film where he is treating Dewey like crap, forcing him to reveal Sydney's private home address, like telling him she needs to be here, you know, and he's like, no, I'm not giving you that. I want her safe. I mean, it's like, this piece of crap is risking, you know, Sydney's safety by forcing him. He wants her there, you know, and he's jeopardizing your safety. Like, yeah, what a great guy Kincaid is. Like, no. I was actually kind of angry they didn't kill him at the end of this. I was actually very angry he lived. I'm like, oh my god, please kill this character. You know, like, I just didn't like him at all throughout this whole thing. And I'm so happy that Scream 7 retconned that him and Sydney got together because that made me so freaking mad. But anyway, so the movie pretty much wraps up with, you know, Sydney, you know, starting a new chapter in her life. Roman's killed. The cycle seems to be over. You know, they killed the guy, apparently, who started the whole thing. It's over. You know, she opens the gates up to her house, and the others are there getting ready to watch a movie with her, and she leaves the front door open, signifying that she's not scared anymore. And then that's where the movie ends. And I think for a lot of people, this probably should have been the ending, but 11 years later, we got Scream 4, which in my opinion breathed new life into the franchise, because I just kind of thought that Screams 2 and 3 were kind of weak in my opinion. But like I said, this is just my opinion. I know a lot of people enjoyed, you know, Screams 2 and 3. And I'm not trying to say they're bad movies or anything. I just think when you compare them to what came before and after, I feel like these two are kind of like the low point in the franchise. I think 4, 5, and 6 did an amazing job of breathing new life into the franchise. I think the later films made the story better. You know, I think that things got more intense and 4 and onward, you know, but 2 and 3 are still good films. I'd watch them with someone, you know, but I would rather watch, you know, 4, 5, and 6 instead of, you know, 2 and 3. But that's just me. It's different for everybody. So again, I'm not throwing shade on these. I'm not trying to be, you know, negative or anything. My entire channel is dedicated to positive energy at all times, you know, most of the time. I try to be positive as much as possible, especially on projects I'm not really a fan of. I know I did the Alien 3 recording where it was literally just 40 minutes of me just ranting about how much I hate Alien 3, but I did that more for comedic purposes, you know, because that's one of my least favorite films of all time, and I consider it to be one of the worst sequels ever made. But again, I was just trying to have some fun with it, you know. I mean, if any of you like Alien 3, that is totally fine. I don't like it very much, you know. I was just trying to be comedic, you know. But anyway, um, but I will admit, I think Screams 2 and 3 did have a lot of good, you know, suspense moments. I mean, these two films did have a lot of good things in them. You know, I think the chase sequences and some of the kills in these are pretty violent, too. I mean, like, we all remember Scream 2's opening where Jada's character is on a date with her boyfriend to go see Stab 1 in theaters, you know, and her boyfriend goes to use the bathroom right quick, and he hears a conversation going on in the stall next to him. He puts his like ear against the stall wall, and the knife, you know, comes through the wall right into his scalp. Like that was a real violent one, all right, you know. And then poor Jada, gets, you know, stabbed in the gut multiple times in the theater room, and she climbs up on stage all bloody, and everybody starts cheering. They think it's part of the show. They don't realize this poor woman's literally dying, you know, right in front of them. But yeah, that was insane. And then, you know, Randy's death, holy cow, that was violent. I mean, it took me by surprise. I mean, he gets dragged into that news van and gets just, you know, stabbed like 20 times. They find his body, you know, just completely, you know, drenched in blood. Like, that was a very, you know, violent end for poor Randy, you know, and, like, and Scream 3 had some pretty good suspense stuff. You know, I like the scene where, you know, Sydney has to, you know, use this metal scanner on herself, and she manages to hide a gun. You know, like, I think she had a pistol, I think, I think she had a pistol tied around her ankle or something. I can't. She managed to hide a very small gun in like a pocket or something, from what I remember. But I thought that was really cool how she was able to trick Ghostface into getting a weapon into the house, you know. But one last thing I will say about Scream 3, and for me, the weakest part about 3, in my opinion, was the reveal of Roman being the killer, and the whole, you know, Sydney's mom backstory of her being an actress in Hollywood. I just kind of felt that was kind of silly, you know. And you find out apparently she had a son with somebody and she abandoned him. And, you know, and she abandoned Sydney pretty much as well. I mean, the film just kind of makes her... She was a very horrible human being, you know. We already knew this. This film kind of amped it up to 11, which is what a very bad person she was. But the whole Hollywood backstory was... I just kind of feel like it was really silly, you know. But I like the concept of, like, a movie within a movie. Like, one of my favorite chase sequences in this was when Sydney's running through the set recreation of her house, you know, from the first movie. I thought that was a nice little homage, you know, and I like how she opens the door expecting a room to be there, but she falls off a ledge because she forgets it's a set, not a real house, you know. That was really cool, you know, dynamic. And, there was a couple of random cameos in Scream 3 that I'm still scratching my head on to this very day why they're there and what was the point. But yeah, there's a couple of extremely random cameos. The first one was, was Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes playing Silent Bob and Jay from the Clerk films. There's this random scene where they're playing their characters and they're with this group of people getting a tour of the movie studio, and the two of them see Gail. They're like, "Hey, is that Gail Weathers?" And they like wave at her or something, and she just gives them the finger. And then they're like, "Oh, whatever," and then they just keep walking with the rest of the tour group. And I'm like, what was that all about? I mean, it's like, are you telling me okay, so I guess the Cork films and Scream are in the same universe. Okay then. You know, that was like one of the most random cameos I've ever seen in my life. And then, surprise cameo number 2, Carrie Fisher has an appearance in this. there's a scene where Gail and the actress playing her and Stab are together, and they're trying to uncover more information about Sydney's mother's past, and they go into like this archive office, and the lady running it is Carrie Fisher's character, Blancy, apparently her name is. And they're like, oh, hi, hey, you look awfully familiar, like Carrie Fisher. Yeah, I applied for the Leia role. I guess you got it. The woman who slept with George Lucas. It's like, okay, it was such a random cameo, and it's like, oh, Carrie Fisher's in this. Okay, then, that was just so random. I remember seeing it for the first time. I'm like, what's Princess Leia doing in this, But anyway, yeah, that was just a random thing about Scream 3 that I was like, okay, they're in this for some reason. But anyway, and I'd like to give another shout out to Roger L. Jackson, who does the Ghostface voiceover. I mean, I want to meet this guy like so badly. I mean, for now it's going to be 7 films in a row. This man has brought Ghostface to life, and he's a legend. His Ghostface, voiceover is incredible. It's great. Got to give a shout out to that guy. I hope I get a chance to meet him at a convention one day because I want him to autograph a Scream photo for me so badly. Sorry about that quick little pause there. My father had brought home lunch, so I ran downstairs and ate right quick, but now I'm back. Had myself some delicious leftover Casey's pizza along with some mac and cheese and cheesy potatoes. Very good lunch. But anyway, I'm back. And another thing I will say about Scream 3 that I really did enjoy was the ending to Gail and Dewey's, relationship, where he proposes to her by putting the ring like in a copy of one of her books, which I thought was very cool. I will admit it was nice to finally see them, get married finally, because they had this on and off thing going on. And then it was cool to see them, married for, in the 4th film. Everything seemed to be going fine. But then Scream 5, they're separated. And I know a lot of fans were very angry about that. I mean, I was, I guess, a little slightly annoyed because, like, I don't understand what this thing is where it's like, in, like, most franchises now, especially in the horror genre, you're not allowed to be happy, Like, it really annoyed me in the new I Know What You Did Last Summer sequel where they separated Patrick's character, or no, Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer's characters, and I Know What You Did Last Summer 3, because the first 2 films have been building up their relationship or whatever. Then the 3rd film shows up, you find out they're divorced, and they very, very hate each other, and it's so annoying. I mean, it's like, I was really, when going into this film, I thought they were going to be married, with kids, and it just annoys me, that franchises do this, where it's like our main characters aren't allowed to be happy. In Scream 5, Dewey and Gail had been divorced for a while, because apparently you learn in Scream 5 that Gail had gotten a news anchor job in New York, and when they went over there, things started to go out of control. I guess Dewey wasn't really, liking this lifestyle. And, unfortunately with Gail's character, she's been shown time and time again, she always chooses her career above anything else. So she basically sacrificed her marriage, for this career she wanted, which, unfortunately that fits her character, unfortunately. I mean, she always chooses her career. I think there's a good side to her, but she has this big obsession with her work. But at the very least in 5, they're still friends, but I guess I have to agree with the fans. I thought it was a really stupid, writing choice to separate them. But I mean, things happen like that in real life, where it's like 2 people look like they're meant to be together, but it doesn't work out. It's just circumstances, but But I don't know. It's just a very complicated thing, you know. And a lot of times, you know, relationships don't work out. But it's annoying. Like every franchise is doing this, you know, where it's like, you know, in the new Star Wars trilogy, Han and Leia are separated, and they did it again in Indiana Jones 5, and you know, Indiana and Marion are separated. It's like whenever they do sequels to franchises from a long time ago, it's like the characters are not allowed to be happy. They have to be separated and miserable, and I'm tired of that. They do that over and over again with everything, you know, so I find it to be very annoying, but, you know, whatever. I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world, but, you know, it's like their relationship was built over the span of 4 films, then 5 just ends it, you know, but so kind of felt pointless in the long run, but it's a very complicated thing. But like I said, this whole thing is just to say I agree with the fans that after all that work, it seemed like a very bad writing choice, you know, to separate them after all the writing work that went into building their marriage up in the first place. But 3, I think, was a very cool way to end the story, at least then, with them getting married finally. You know, I kind of felt like everybody had gotten their happy conclusion, you know. But you got, like I said earlier, there's a part of me that wishes they had gone with the original idea of bringing Stu back and having a group of Ghostface killers going after Sydney and them. I think that would have been amazing. I wish we could have gotten to see that. I mean, part of me wishes that maybe they could like adapt that version of the film into like a comic book or something. I feel like that would have been, you know, I would love to, because they've done that. My best friend Jonathan, who's made a couple appearances on the show, we covered the original Godzilla from 1954 together, and we covered his favorite anime, Evangelion, and him and I are big fans of the Alien franchise, and we've had this long argument going on for about a decade now, where him and I, you know, he loves Alien 3, I hate it, and he thinks that Aliens was kind of pointless. But I disagree with him. I mean, we like Aliens, but he thinks that killing off Newt and Hicks at the very beginning of 3 was justified, and I don't. We've had this argument going on for years. Anyway, he let me borrow this graphic novel, and it's a different script idea that the writers have been juggling around for Scream 3, for Alien 3, sorry, but they chose a different one instead. But this alternate version of the story, I actually enjoyed this one a lot more, because in this version, you know, Hicks and Newt live. Hicks is actually a main character in this one, and Newt gets written out of the story about halfway through. She gets sent to go live with like a family relative or something, and I really enjoyed that. I much rather would have had that all. I much rather would have had this story, because then at the very least, you know, Hicks is still alive, you know, and then Newt has the ability to come back into the story, you know. Opening the film up with Hicks and Newt just being killed off screen was, in my opinion, a very bad idea, you know. But anyway, this graphic novel was amazing. Like, I'm reading this, I'm like, they should have adapted this version too. But it was cool to see this version be brought to life, and I wish that, you know, that we would do that more often, where it's like I release graphic novels of alternate story ideas for films that were neglected, you know. I think that would have been cool. I think they should do that with the original script idea they had for Scream 3. I'm very curious to see what that story would have looked like, you know. But I would like to see that. I doubt it'll ever happen, but I think that'd be a very cool thing to see one day. But yeah, Scream 3, in my opinion, was the weakest one out of the 6 films that we have so far. I'd still watch it, but when you compare it to the others, I think it was the weakest entry. And I think the second weakest was Scream 2. But again, that's my opinion. But that wraps up about all the talking points that I had talking about Screams 2 and 3. It was really cool getting the chance to talk about these finally. So that now marks the end of the Scream films. now that this recording is finished up, I have now covered all 6 of the films. And I definitely will be covering Scream 7 whenever I get the chance. I will be seeing it with my mom as soon as possible, and I'm very excited to see it. It's sounding very promising all the time, and it's going to be cool to get to see one with Sydney as the lead again. We haven't seen that since 2011, so this will be great. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this recording. Thank you so much for your support of my channel and this podcast journey. I have a long list of topics I can't wait, to share with all of you. So you guys are gonna love it. So thank you for all your amazing support. I hope you enjoy this recording. And as I always end these, stay positive, stay happy, and keep living life to the fullest. Keep working hard, and I wish you all the most success in life. So take care of yourselves, and until next time, my name is Christian Taylor, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.